Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Ryan Wormeli, joined today by Derek Brown and by Jake Ciely from The Athletic. Guys, we are talking league winners to target in your 2025 fantasy drafts. We are going to be looking kind of throughout drafts, so we've got a couple of names at the top, sort of the anchors with elite upside is how we're framing it. Then some of those mid-round breakout guys. And then even some guys going later. We're kind of classifying that as round 9 and beyond that could take a big leap and really prove to be those league winners for you. Quick reminder for everybody, as always, that all of our 2025 consensus rankings and tiers can be found at fantasypros.com/rankings. We're kind of going based off the, half PPR, ECR when we're talking about guys who are early, middle, late, etc. Before we dive in, though, Jake, what do you have going on at The Athletic?
Draft kit's about to come out, because we wait for everybody else to roll yours like you guys a month ago. But we're getting ours coming out. The projections are already there. As you know, if you disagree with anything I say, you can change projections to your scoring system, which I know Fantasy Pros does as well. But that's what we're here for. You can use all these tools to make sure you're getting your drafts right. And of course, always you can't. I'm disappointed. You can't say it's the Fresh Prince of saying air, like instead of Bel Air. Like you can't see the bottom part. Like it's just see. I knew Debro would appreciate it.
No, very nice.
I know that's Dragon Ball Z. I have never seen it, which is going to shock nobody.
Wait, so
terrible movie takes up and becomes terrible TV
I've
show.
also never seen The Fresh Prince of Bel Air.
Wow!
So, Debro, you also missed that he's never been to Taco Bell, so he has to go to Taco Bell. Watch some DBZ and Fresh Prince.
Yeah, Jake found out the Taco Bell one last episode we did, and he was messaging me afterwards like, you got to get the cheesy crunch or something?
Cheesy gordita crunch.
Yeah.
The fact that he couldn't even recite that means that he's never been to a Taco Bell.
I've never stepped foot inside a Taco Bell.
I question your nightlife. Like, what were you doing at 2 a.m. in college if you never frequented any Taco Bell?
I legit thought maybe he was Canadian like Chris Meany. Like,
that's fair.
That would explain a lot.
My late night post bar cravings in college were very pizza heavy. It was whatever the local slice was next to the bar. That was my go-to, more so than craving Mexican food. But everybody's different.
Tacos at 2 a.m. are undefeated. I'm sorry, Worm.
Yeah. Maybe one. Well, see, at this point, I said that it's like, do I even want to break the streak now? Like, I'm not intentionally avoiding it, but
no, now you're intentionally avoiding it. Well, you literally just stated that.
Yeah.
Maybe on a team trip, I'll
just outed yourself
late one night. We're off to a roaring to start. Debro, quickly, what do you have going on here? I mean, just like kind of personally, what you working on any specific articles or anything?
Oh, dude, we've got a ton of articles. I've got my top 7 quarterbacks that I'm drafting in every format that just hit the site. The top 200 has been out. I'm still adding players to that. When it's all said and done, the height of draft season, it's probably going to be like about 225, 240 players that are all written up. So, I mean, that can cover you redraft, dynasty, whatever, best ball, 20-round drafts over on DraftKings. You're covered, man.
I was going to say,
so the quarterbacks feels, and then the other one we're talking about today, that's the 7th.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and by the way, everybody can definitely guess who the other one is that we're going to be talking about today if they've ever watched an episode with Debro before. We'll get to that one later, though.
I like talented players.
Yeah, exactly. Let's start off with the anchors who have elite upside, and we're trying to stay away from round 1 here, so it's more like kind of that round 2 and 3, because obviously round 1, everybody kind of knows the best names there. So, Debro, let's start with you. Who is your number 1 anchor with elite upside here in those early rounds?
Oh, dude, it's Drake London. I'm willing to take him in the first round, but you don't have to. He's going to go somewhere in the second round in all of your drafts. And I think not only did we see the full breakout, so he's wide receiver 13 in fantasy points per game. The dude was top 5 in targets last year, top 5 in target share. He was top 12 in receiving yards per game and yards per route run. And I know we've talked about on this previous shows for Fantasy Pros, just the splits with Michael Penix, but this is such a consolidated passing attack. Drake London is going to be the clear and unquestioned one in this offense. And if Penix can be who we hope he could be, then Drake London has top 3 upside, wide receiver 1 overall upside because of his red zone usage, the target share he's going to garner in this offense. And we just saw it with Penix, man. I mean, he had a 39% target share with Michael Penix. Now, I don't think that keeps up, obviously. Like, that's ridiculous. But 30%, 32%, that's absolutely possible for Drake London this year.
Debra, I can't remember. Did I mention we did a show earlier this week also? Did I tell you that I got Drake London in the late third in Scott Fishbowl?
I did too. Thank you, third round reversal, and thank you, Scott Fish, for that.
I knew you'd be very happy with that. Jake, when is the right time, do you think, to go after Drake London? I mean, he's somebody that if you look at the Fantasy Pros rankings, not the industry rankings, but specifically our staff rankings, he's like borderline a first-round pick because guys like Erickson and Debra are very high on him. I think Debra's right, though. Like, you don't have to take him in the first, certainly. This is a guy who's going in the second round of most drafts. He's 16th overall in ECR, wide receiver 9. Does that kind of early to middle part of second round sound right to you?
No. And sneak preview, if you want to check out the podcast that you and I are going to do for later, I have my picks by rounds. And why I say no is because if you want Drake London in a draft that I'm taking him in, you better take him 8th because I have him 9th overall.
Wow. All right, writing it down for flex. Got it. Jake, ready.
I am 100%. I'll save some of my nuggets along with what Debro said there for when we do that episode, but I can't agree more. And honestly, you said, I'll say something that Debro said. We hope Penix can be what we hope he can be. I'll take it one step further. Even if Penix is only Kirk Cousins from last year, which was miserable for a full season, that's still around 4,000 yards and 22 touchdowns. Not a great shakes for us in fantasy for the quarterback himself, but even at a 30% target share, Drake London's still going to be pushing top 10 value. So honestly, we don't even need him to be great for this kind of workload to be there. And it's going to be Darnell Mooney or Kyle Pitts, probably Mooney as the two. But I mean, it's London and then everybody else. So I couldn't agree with this one anymore. I'm taking him late first round.
Yeah, and just for full clarity, I have him at wide receiver 6. I have him at 11th overall. Again, you don't have to take him in the first round, but
unless you're at a draft with Jake.
Fair. No, we both have him 6. I just have, obviously, there's probably a difference in running backs there. That's all.
I want to see you two and Erickson in a salary cap league together and just see the bidding go nuts.
They're just going to keep out bidding.
Yeah.
Just go for broke.
All right, Jake,
that's when you get to that one where it's like, you get that reticent little 41.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like, and I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it.
Does this dude just outbid me again?
Well, I know that you guys are going to agree on Jake's first player, too, because it's a player that Debra's been hyping up all offseason, and Jake only more recently.
100% more recently. And I will admit, so something has changed. For a while there, I was out on Kenneth Walker, and I actually thought Kenneth Walker would see more of a split with Charbonnet from last season because Charbonnet stepping in from him was pretty damn good. And let's be honest, like it was no slouch. He was putting up RB1 numbers in some of those games, and actually overall in a points per game only with the Kenneth Walker games, he's in the RB1 conversation. So I'm like, why not go with this? And Kubiak I watched, last year, and granted it was the Saints, but it was those, actually it's going to tie into another thing. I'm going to save a bit more for that, but some of the motions that he uses involves 2 running backs in the backfield. All that being said, I hit up Michael Sean Duggar from The Athletic, and I said, look, I'm speculating here, and, is it going to be more of a share? Charbonnet looked really good last year. There's been talk that they're going to go bell cow. Like, what are you hearing? And he sent me 4 words, and it was KW9 is bell cow. So that's so I'm going to shift. I trust Sean Duggar. I trust him when he covered one of the best covering the Seahawks. And I immediately changed the work share. And like, if you go to my projections, like I said, you can change it. I immediately shifted it to Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet Morris, a timeshare piece. And that puts him in the RB1 conversation where, I think in the second round, if he's there and you went wide receiver first, and maybe you go bell cow running back and you just hammer that. But I mean, if you go wide receiver first and you can pair with Kenneth Walker in the second round, I will take him in the second round now. And that's from somebody that just 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I was getting a lot of hate. I mean, I will say the hate was all speculative, and maybe they talked to Michael Sean Duggar that I didn't yet. But once I heard that, that's what I needed to hear. I needed to hear that somebody trusts that he's going to be a bell cow running back in this backfield. And if so, it's undeniable, even though I don't like the fact that he should be better between the tackles. That's not going to care as much when, hey, you have those explosive runs, which will check in more often if you're getting 20 touches a game.
Yeah, for me, and that's great to hear, like, as somebody who is like very high on Kenneth Walker, and I know Debro certainly is too. For me, like, if you're painting a case against him, it's more just like the missed time and being banged up and the injuries. It's not the usage when healthy. What if you told me he's going to be healthy the whole season, like, I would be very confident in saying he's going to be a top 12 running back, like with more upside even beyond that. Debro, again, I want to let you weigh in because obviously you're super high
weigh in because I actually, this is how far I went with him. I pushed him in front of Chase Brown, James Cook, Kamara. He's 12th.
Oh, baby. What do you have him at?
12th. right behind.
Oh,
Kyren
I love
Williams.
it. I'm an RB10. So, I mean, we're basically hand-holding Jake. I mean, and I'm thinking then he's just going to take a small step forward because he was RB12 in fantasy points per game. So, with a more run-centric offense, we saw Walker. I mean, he performed for everything that everybody said in the pre-draft process. This dude was an elite receiving back last year. I mean, he was top 7 in first downs per route run, targets per route run, and receiving yards per game. And so, what's changed? If anything, he might get even more of a hefty target share this year, considering DK Metcalf's gone, Tyler Lockett's gone. Yeah, you still got JSN back. What does Cooper Kupp have left? We've seen iterations like Cooper Kupp has had a hard time staying on the field and being effective over the last few seasons. If he goes down at all, Kenneth Walker's the number 2 option in the passing game. So the receiving upside is what I think kind of gets lost in the conversation of Walker. 1, how good he was last year, and 2, the upside that he possesses this year. So I'm with Jake. He's an RB1. And yeah, I would take him in the second round, but the great thing about it right now is everybody else is kind of sleeping on him. He's in the 30s in most drafts. He'll fall to the 4th round in some spots.
I was going to ask you that, Debra, because like Jake had mentioned the second round thing. Are you somebody, it depends where you're picking early on for when you have these sorts of conversations. Like if you have the early second round pick or a late second round pick, that's a different conversation. Are you, let's say you have a late second rounder, are you saying like, I don't want to risk not getting him in the 3rd, so I want him so badly that I'm just going to take him in the 2nd? Or are you saying like, I even recognizing I could miss out on him, I do think you can wait till the 3rd? How are you approaching that?
I think depending on a lot of draft rooms, and this is going to be if you're using Draft Wizard and you're running mocks and you have draft intel plugged in, you know how your league is going to draft. So I think that is a skeleton key to all of this. But just in a vacuum, I'm willing to take him in the 2nd if I have to. Like if I'm in some sharp industry league or something like that, I know he's not going to come back to me. That's fine. But getting him in the 3rd right now, which I think if you're taking him in the 3rd, you're probably going to be getting him in a ton of spots if you're playing in 10, multiple leagues, however many leagues that is. So if you take him in the 3rd, but Kenneth Walker is one of the great pieces this year in the fantasy landscape to where like you can go early wide receiver in the first 2 rounds, or you can go wide receiver and premium tight end, knowing I can get a Kenneth Walker in the 3rd round as an RB1 with even more upside. Like he's got top 5 upside this year with that type of usage if he stays healthy and he gets the touchdowns, and even just a small jump. Like not even like, I'm not projecting that the Seattle offensive line become a top 12 unit. Just give me league average blocking. League average. That's it. If he gets that, he's got plenty of meat on the bone to absolutely crush his ADP, and it's why you can start your drafts with wide receiver, or wide receiver tight end.
Well, you mentioned premium tight end there, Debra. Let's go to your next player here, who is one of these premium tight ends.
I mean, yeah, like league winners. I mean, anybody, like I'm talking about Trey McBride, and I understand, like, yes, he was tight end 2. He's a top 3 tight end in all formats and drafts and ADP and all that kind of stuff. But where I think that kind of with all the hype about Brock Bowers, and I'm not saying that I don't love Brock Bowers. I mean, I have him inside my top 3 tight ends as well. But with Trey McBride, it comes down to if he gets the touchdowns with the role that he has in that offense, he could be a league-defining player. Like Travis Kelce, 1st round type of like pick over the last few years, where we're talking about, okay, this guy is a difference maker. Because just if you look at last year, 15.6 PPR points per game. He had 19.2 expected fantasy points per game. So just talking about if he'd have scored the freaking touchdowns that with his usage led us to believe he could have done, then we're talking about a guy that if you look at it across different positions would have been the RB5 and the wide receiver 3 in points per game. So why I think paying up for Trey McBride is, I mean, that is one of the linchpins of my draft strategy this year. It's either I'm going for McBride or I'm waiting on Kittle. I want one of these premium guys. And it's not to say I don't like Brock Bowers, but I'll take the discount on Trey McBride every single time because in the offense with his role, I mean, this guy was top 3 in every single usage and efficiency metric that we care about. If he gets the touchdowns, this is a guy that I think we all could be looking back at this season and saying, dude, why weren't we drafting Trey McBride in the 1st round?
Jake, you probably heard the same phrase a bunch there that I did, which is if he scores the touchdown. So what I want to ask you is less where do you have him ranked amongst tight ends? Because everybody has him in the top 3.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, at least in the rankers on Fantasy Pros, have him in the top 2. Obviously, there's several that have him number 1, along with Debro. Less so him versus a guy like Bowers or Kittle. Do you think he is going to score enough touchdowns just in a vacuum to be worth that second-round pick to get a guy like Trey McBride? Because right now in ECR, he is like a back end of the second-round type of player. I think he's like 23rd overall.
So second round, no, honestly, I'd be okay with the third. And kind of into your question when you asked to follow up with the Kenneth Walkers, I was talking about late second. If you want to go, same thing. If you want to go late second because you have the 11th pick and you just want to make sure the person on the turn doesn't snipe you because you were going to take him in the third, and there's no reason not to just take him right there. So I'm not going to be like, oh, I can't believe you took him in the second round if you took him with the 11th pick. I have hesitancies about the touchdowns, and not anything that Debro said was wrong. I just look at last year, and as bad as it was for Marvin Harrison, this is the stat that just continues to baffle me last year, is that, yes, McBride had more red zone targets, but Marvin Harrison doubled him up in end zone targets 18-9. And I keep referencing that just to say that, like, we, as everybody, like, I have Trey McBride for more touchdowns this year in my projections. I believe he'll score more, but like, we as a collective, the fantasy community, the fantasy industry, everybody is just like, he should score more. And like, what if that stays the same? What if Kyler Murray just has eyes? He didn't even have eyes for Harrison the entire year last year, but one thing he did have eyes for him for is once he got into the end zone. And like, what if that just stays? I mean, we're talking about Marvin Harrison was up there with the Mike Evans of the world and Jamar Chases of the world for end zone targets. He was top 5 in the NFL, despite how bad his year was. And I'm just saying, it would be tough to see a complete shift. And maybe the complete shift is like a lot of those didn't come down and he does turn to McBride more. That's what we can hope for, but that's just why I wouldn't be in the second round. I think there just needs to be a little bit more risk that maybe McBride is more the between the 20. Like, if we're talking running backs, he's the Matt Forte. He's like, everything's in between the 20s and 10s, and then all of a sudden they turn elsewhere when they get into the end zone. That being said, if something shifts, Debro's not wrong. He can be the number 1 tight end. My biggest issue overall is that I just think there's such a slim margin, as you said, with the top 3 tight ends, that I'm just taking Kittle 2 rounds later anyway.
Yeah, it's fair.
Debro, what would you set the over-under at for his touchdowns?
Oh, man.
I don't know what the official line is, but what would you set it at if it were up to you?
I'd say 6. If I'm setting a betting line for him, I think like 5.5, 6 is probably fair. And I think he can eclipse that. I mean, with his
I have him for
usage,
6.2.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So like, I think those are fair lines considering his usage. But if we do see the regression hits in a big way, like there's been so many guys over the years we talked about, like, can't score touchdowns until they do. I mean, a la George Kittle. Didn't we all have that conversation previously? Or even Amon-Ra St. Brown, where it was like, they're not scoring touchdowns. Oh, he's going to be more like Keenan Allen. He's not scoring touchdowns. Then Amon-Ra has spiked a ton the last 2 years. Kittle doesn't score touchdowns, and then he scored 8, 6, and 11 the last 3 years. So I think the touchdowns are, I mean, we talk about it every year. They're fluky. So if we just go with usage and stuff, I think regression is going to hit. The question is how much.
Let's go to Jake's next pick here in the early rounds. And Jake, you're apparently a Seahawks super fan now.
I am a super fan. I will say this person I've been on the entire time. It's surprising. I was shocked that it feels like I'm on like this limb. I get a lot of questions of like, why do you have JSN so high? And I'm like, I didn't know I was out on this island by myself. Like, I figured everybody was in on JSN. The Smith-Njigba just broke out last year, and now Cooper Kupp, great option is the number 2, but as Debro said, like, how much is left? And this is coming from somebody who's been a proponent of taking Kupp at his value because he's basically a bench option at this point. But all that being said, I'm going to go back to the Kubiak thing that I was talking about before. So watching with the Saints and watching what he's done in the past, I keep referencing there was this Yankee formation that he used, which was 2 backs, and then it was either 2 backs or 2 tight ends. And what he does, he creates a lot of motion underneath. And what that did was open Olave, Shaheed down deep over the seam, middle of the field, and Carr can hit that. And we all know that Carr got some hate for not having a great deep ball for the longest time, but he was middle of the pack. He was average. That's all we need. And we just watched Sam Darnold, despite the end of the season looking like the ghost Sam Darnold, where he couldn't handle pressure anymore. Everything leading up to that was Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison down that stretch were both Addison included, both top 5 wide receivers until he hit that really bad stretch at the end of the season. But all that is similar usage of what Jefferson should be with Jaxon Smith-Njigba now with Darnold and in this Kubiak offense. If you go back and, like I said, go watch some of the plays, he does a lot where he gets space kind of congested underneath and he breaks either 1 or 2 deep. It's 1 wide receiver, sometimes a tight end, sometimes 2 tight ends or 2 wide receivers. But it's freeing these guys over the seams, over the middle of the fields. And that's Smith-Njigba, because I see a lot of people saying like, well, he's really great in the slot. What is he outside? And I'm not saying he's Justin Jefferson, but remember when people said the same thing about Justin Jefferson coming out of college? Like, I don't know if he can play outside. Well, who cares if you're the elite outside, which Jefferson obviously is, but you can be used enough in both facets with Smith-Njigba's talent that, okay, sometimes he's still out of the slot, but he's running that big slot seam route downfield. And I just think that Kubiak is going to be able to use him the best, with Kupp being that answer underneath. Or if you saw anything within the past week, if you haven't drafted Elijah Arroyo in your 4th round yet, that's the tight end apparently to target, because as soon as they let Noah Fant go, everybody's like, but jokes aside, Arroyo can open things up as well. There will be opened up routes and play designs for Smith-Njigba to not only see what he saw last year, but even a 10 to 15 jump in targets. You're going to see also more production on a per basis or per reception basis. Of course, assuming Sam Darnold looks capable for the entire year, which I think he can. I think he's getting too much hate.
Deeper, what do you think? Where do you have JSN ranked at the position?
I'm below consensus. The only reason is because of some of the worries about Sam Darnold. But to Jake's point, if Kubiak dials up, it's kind of the archetype of JSN, the wide receiver. And if he busts that archetype, because being the low A dot guy, really volume reliant, the way that Seattle ran their offense last year was super pass heavy. So I guess the reasons with JSN that I'm a little bit below consensus is not that I don't like JSN. I was pounding the table for him last year. It's that I have some Sam Darnold concerns, but I don't know how much they're going to dial back the passing. And if JSN doesn't create, like if he doesn't change up and he's not just the low A dot guy, then if the target volume goes down, his fantasy value is going to go down. But to Jake's point, if we get the play action downfield shots with JSN, and we do get higher A dot, and he is getting some more deep targets, can he still pay off? Can he hit the highs that Jake's laying out here? He absolutely can. Dude's got talent, man. So I mean, I'm not going to sit here and shade JSN a ton there, because he is easily the most talented guy. And one thing when I was writing up the top 200 that kind of surprised me about Cooper Kupp when I got to him was his separation and route win rate numbers from the perimeter was actually better than what he did in the slot last year. So I think we actually could be reading this a little bit wrong too, where it's like maybe JSN stays inside, Cooper Kupp plays more outside, so JSN's going to just get fed too. There's that out too.
Get in the game. Best Ball is live at DraftKings. $15 million is on the line with real stakes and real excitement. Best Ball is the biggest fantasy contest at DraftKings. We're talking a $15 million guaranteed prize pool, with 2 millionaires being crowned for first and second place. Play season-long fantasy football the DraftKings way. With Best Ball, there's no waiver wires and no roster management. You get bigger rosters so injuries won't end your season. Just draft your team and you're set. If a shot at winning a share of $15 million isn't enough to get you excited, check this out. DraftKings is offering everyone a draft one, get one special. Your $20 entry fee scores you a bonus ticket. Download the DraftKings app and use code FANTASYPROS. That's code FANTASYPROS for all customers who enter the NFL Best Ball 15 million millionaire contest to get a bonus ticket and get a shot at being crowned one of 2 millionaires only on DraftKings. All right, guys, let's move towards more of the rounds 4 to 8 range. We're kind of classifying this the explosive breakouts. D-Bro, we'll start with you here, and you're going with another receiver.
All in on Tetairoa McMillan. I'm not the highest person at Fantasy Pros ECR on him, but I'm close. I bumped him up to wide receiver 17. I love this player. I think that he has alpha breakout upside. And I think what's kind of getting lost, one, I think people being so down on this last wide receiver class and then shading Tet every single way that they possibly could. Oh, he's too slow. Oh, he's not going to get drafted top 10. Oh, he's not too slow. He did run fast enough, and he did go top 10. And now he goes to Carolina, and everybody's like, oh, it's Carolina. Dude, he's going to be the unquestioned wide receiver one there. And looking at his profile, he can get deep, he can perform after the catch, and he's big enough to be a red zone target. And when we saw Bryce Young performing extremely well, so weeks 12 through 18, This offense was 13th in neutral passing rate, and I brought this up on a previous show. I think it's the touchdown upside. And I've already bet the over for his receiving touchdowns over Betting Pros. His line is too low, and he has massive touchdown equity in this offense. If they do what they did last year, because Carolina was quietly 4th in red zone passing rate, top 12 once they got inside the 10-yard line. So Tetairoa McMillan quietly has double-digit touchdown upside, and if he does that, he gets the target volume that we saw last year. Adam Thielen got fed. Deontay Johnson before him got fed. If we see that same type of volume for Tet this year, he's going to blow expectations out of the water, and he's going to be a top 20 to maybe 15. Maybe he's flirting with wide receiver 1 production this year in this offense.
Yeah, we talked earlier this week, Debro, how Bryce Young doesn't need to take a step forward for Tet to be really valuable. He just needs to do what he was in the second half of last season. Mm-hmm. And like, there are some people who are kind of baking in like, well, now we'll get a full season of it. Maybe he does take a step forward. That doesn't need to happen. If he is just who he was in the second half of last year, then Tet will get, I think, enough work to be a really screaming value. Jake, this is a guy that like I've talked about a lot, like I said, with Debro. Somebody who I think is like very likely going to be going higher in drafts next year than he is this year. And I like to target those guys who I think this is the cheapest you're going to get them. And those kind of early top 10 rookie receivers are guys that tends to apply to. I'm really excited about Tet this year. What do you think about him?
Yeah, it's weird because I'm getting a lot of hate for being one of the highest on Bryce Young. And then at the same time, conversely, I'm actually one of the lowest on Tet McMillan. And it's not because I don't like Tet McMillan. I said on this show, I'm pretty sure it was with Debro or with Boggs after the draft. And I said, we got tired. And like, remember, it was Tet McMillan, Tetairoa McMillan, best wide receiver. He's going to be a top 10 pick. And the draft rolls around there. But everybody's like, well, maybe he's not this. Yeah. And maybe he's like, we got tired of talking about him. You see this every single year with a player or two in the NFL draft. And so I'm presenting all that to say is like, I'm team McMillan. I'm team Bryce Young. My concern is I'm also team concerned, and it's twofold. There's one, I don't disagree that Bryce Young has to get better for McMillan to have a great season. I think that there would have to be a very heavy target share because I'm concerned that even the better Bryce Young that we saw, you're still only getting 9-10 yards per completion, not even the A-dot. Like, so you're going to talk about the fact that what if it's the same Bryce Young who's keeps a little bit short into his game, doesn't make as many of the big plays. He made some big throws down the end of the stretch, which was better. He's extended plays like he did at Bama. But just what over the course of the entire season, because that's where I fall into is that similar to Debro's point about JSN, I think that could limit McMillan and the fact that everything's shorter than it could be with McMillan's skill set. It could be with Bryce Young. And then you have the fact of there's a lot of options on this team. Now, nobody holds a candle McMillan. Thielen at this point of his career, Leggett, all the rest. I just don't know that his target share is also going to be approaching 27, 28, 29%, which it should. It's just there's enough concerns for me that I have him in a very giant tier. I go from Chris Olave at wide receiver 25 to Travis Hunter at wide receiver 35. He's in that tier with Devonta Smith and Waddle and Jennings and Jude. Like, take any of those names. It's just some of those names in front of them, like Smith and Jameson. Like, I know they're the twos, but I know who they are. I know who Chris Olave could be, even with a bad quarterback. Similar situation, honestly. Jalen Waddle, if he can stay healthy. So, like, there's a lot of ifs in this range. And if you want to put McMillan at the top of the tier, I'm not going to come for you because that's why it's a big tier. It's just I'm more on the back side of it just because I think he's got a few more questions than the other receivers. But I do 100% agree with you guys on one thing. Next year, would not be shocked if we're talking about him as a top 15, 20 wide receiver.
Debro, I'm honestly disappointed that you didn't make yourself the highest on him because you're still
go
one
move
spot
him up
behind.
right now.
One spot away.
There's one expert who has him wide receiver 16. You couldn't get there. You can only get to 17. You just aren't the aggressive, full of conviction ranker that I thought you were, and it's just disappointing.
I know. I'm such a sham.
I will say one thing too. To go back to Bryce Young, I only have him thrown for 24 touchdowns. If he throws 26, and both of those go to McMillan, with how narrow that tier is, and you guys know this, 15 points is going to jump you 10 to 12 spots at wide receiver. So it's a very minute margin for these 20 to 30s wide receivers anyway.
Difference between wide receiver 24 and wide receiver 16 or 15 probably. Yeah, easily. Yep.
Jake, you have got a tight end of your own. We already talked about Trey McBride earlier in the episode. Who do you have here?
Yeah, I said his name already. Baby. George Kittle. I'm going to reference something. So over the past 6 seasons, tight ends that have finished with more fantasy points per game than Kittle did last year: Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, and Mark Andrews. It's only happened 5 times. Kelce, for 3 of those, was over like 16. But point being is that Kittle would have been the number 1 a lot of seasons. And even going back before that, there's a lot of seasons, once you get post Gronk, a lot of seasons where 13 points per game gets you to be the tight end 1. And I only reference that to say, I only need Kittle to do what he just did last year. Mm-hmm. And he's arguably number 2, as Debro and you were talking about before, is like, if you want to take McBride second, no problem with it. If you want to take Kittle, no problem. And the reason I say Kittle is because we're all focused on, can Jennings be the guy he was last year with Ayuk out? And even so, when he was still only a fringe wide receiver too, a lot weighted into that one game. Now, mind you, this is somebody I just mentioned. I have Jennings in that tier. I have Jennings as a top 30 wide receiver. I think Pearsall's a great pick, even with what's going on with his injury right now. But I think we're all trying to figure this out. What's the wide receiver is going to be, and what is it going to be when Ayuk comes back? And the answer just continues to stare us in the face. It's Kittle. Like, why are we trying to figure all this out when we just know what it is? And if he does what he did last year, he's number 1 or number 2. And if he even improves just a little bit because all these questions at wide receiver, we're talking about somebody who could be putting up a near Kelce-like season at 15, 16 points per game. And you're getting him in the 4th or 5th round. You don't have to pay the Bowers and McBride price. So I can 100% agree with Debro on the Bowers and McBrides and all that. But I'll just, like I said, I'll just wait till the end of the 4th round or the 5th round and just take the guy who I think is going to be nipping at their heels anyway.
And Debro, I know that like you are targeting McBride earlier, but you are also equally high on Kittle where he's going.
And the way that I keep phrasing this to people is just, I mean, it's as easy as this. Last year's tight end 1 in fantasy points per game is getting drafted as the tight end 3. But why? And for every point that Jake pointed out, and just clarity, I have Trey McBride as my tight end 1. I have George Kittle and not Brock Bowers as my tight end 2. And again, just, I know we're splitting hairs with all those guys, but like Kittle is the best reason why not to draft McBride and Bowers for everything Jake laid out. And yeah, if you just 100-foot view of this offense, if you were to say there's a questionable former first round pick at wide receiver that's now banged up in training camp, if he doesn't take a step forward, if the 27-year-old 4th-year breakout doesn't continue doing what he did last year, if the guy coming off a torn ACL is out even longer or not effective, then all roads point back to George Kittle absolutely smashing this year.
I want to clarify, though, you are not that low on Bowers. I'm looking at your rankings right now.
No, I have them all shoved up.
They're all in the top 20 for you.
Yeah.
It's just that you are higher on McBride and Kittle. You're not actually low on Bowers.
No, Debro hates Brock Bowers. Hates him. And his stupid face.
I mean, that's what people keep saying. They're like, you don't have Bowers at 1? And I'm like, dude, I am big into paying up for elite tight end, getting one of these top 3 guys this year. I think it's one of the ways that you're going to win a league. But because there is such a chasm between the top 3 and everybody else. But I mean, will we all be surprised? I mean, we all did all of this last year with Sam Laporta. Will we all be shocked if Brock Bowers is not tight end 1 this year and he's tight end 3 or he's tight end 4? I mean, come on, man. How long have people been playing fantasy?
If Geno Smith gets hurt in week 4.
Yeah, there's variability with all of this. Or Bowers has a McBride type of year and he doesn't get the touchdowns, but he gets a ton of volume.
Are you, Debro, interested in a bully tight end approach and trying to get 2 of these guys early? Or if you get 1, you're happy with that?
I'm just going 1. I'm totally happy with it.
In that case, I'd rather have a second flex. Because I don't want to tie myself into something.
Or it needs to be some tight end premium format or something.
Yeah, because the bully tight end worries, because then what it forces you to do is you basically have to ignore a screaming value potentially in your draft. There's could be somebody that falls to round 7. You're like, well, I have to put him to my bench potentially because you might already have 2 running backs or 3 wide receivers, and then you've got your flex already tied up. So that's the only reason I don't love it. It's just because you kind of handcuff yourself of your options later on.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is if you were to look at it cross positionally, depending on how your draft is flowing and what your team looks like, I don't hate it in that aspect, but you're going to have to you're stacking up apples to apples and apples to orange. You're going to have to stack this up and say it would have to make sense where whatever's left on the board is lesser than what I think George Kittle can get me. That 16 point per game mark or whatever is basically equivalent. That would have been the wide receiver 16 last year. or that would.
And
have
that's been,
the
thing is even if they're approaching 14 points per game, you're still talking about a mid-high wide receiver 2. So you're actually kind of losing one but gaining the other, and you just kind of come out as a net neutral in the end.
Yeah, agreed.
Debra, who's your next player?
Oh, next guy I got to talk about here has got to be Kaleb Johnson. I mean, just the volume, the talent, the offensive system, all of it's lining up. It just depends on if people are willing to listen to what the Steelers are trying to tell us. I mean, I have been one of the biggest Jaylen Warren stands of the previous few years, but the Steelers have tried to tell us year after year after year after year. They like Jaylen Warren and the role that he operates in, and he's not going to be a 300-touch guy. It comes down to, are we willing to listen to what they keep telling us every single year with him versus Najee Harris? And now, for a team that did not have a second-round draft pick, they go out, and there are other positions they could have addressed in the draft in the third round, and they go out and get a running back. I mean, we've seen how many times walking into the NFL draft, a team either signs a guy that they're comfortable with running out there as their starting running back if they don't get somebody in the draft. And then it's almost like a precursor, a signal that, yes, we're probably going to draft a running back. And the team goes out and does that. And then we see fantasy landscape doesn't shift quickly enough to understand how the backfield's probably going to lay out. I mean, we saw it with Kenneth Walker. We've seen it with all other types of guys that have been drafted. And I'm not saying like we can quibble over third round equity and stuff, but in a deep running back class, that was the second pick for this team. I'm all in on Kaleb Johnson, man. Like, Najee Harris soaked up 299 touches last year. It was 10th most amongst running backs. Even if you nerf that for Kaleb Johnson and say, okay, they're going to pass more because Aaron Rodgers is there and they're not rolling out Russell Wilson. Yeah, fine. 250 is still going to put him near the top 20 amongst running backs. And that might be a conservative number considering what I've been talking about. And then you say the Najee Harris role, but we actually have a running back that can break off big plays. Why are we not excited about that? Why is Kaleb Johnson not a top 20, not a top 24 running back? That type of volume, that type of talent for a player that was top 15 in breakaway percentage, yards after contact per attempt, and elusive rating on a team that we know, even with Rodgers, the Steelers are going to run the ball this year. With that defense, they're already going to be in positive game scripts all the time to salt away the clock. Kaleb Johnson, I mean, we're talking about league winners. He could be carrying people to championships down the back half of the season.
Jake, I feel like we've talked a lot about rookie running backs on shows together. I don't know how much we've talked about Kaleb Johnson specifically, though. I think we've been more focused on guys like Henderson or early on guys like Genty. I don't know that Kaleb Johnson has come up a ton. Where are you at on him?
So I was replaying a GIF from The Office in my head, and I don't want to do it too loud because the dogs are over here, but I just wanted to go, thank you. Like, the podcast that you and I haven't talked where this name has come up, I've been saying the exact same thing that Debra has been saying. It's like, I kept comparing it to Lamar Miller, where, fantasy people are like, give Lamar Miller more touches. He deserves it. Look how good he is. Look how good he is. And it wasn't just the fact that they didn't give it to him, is that once he finally did get that opportunity, he was the same Lamar Miller, way less efficient. The Steelers have told us the efficiency for Warren lies in the role he's in. Everything, as Debra said, has pointed to the Steelers saying, we know Warren. This is what we want Warren to be, nothing else. Like, and that's okay. Like, not every running back is going to be a lead guy. Not every running back is going to be a 20-touch bell cow. Like, let's just be honest and understand who he is. And it's fine. I know we saw it and got frustrated the fact that he was better on a per-touch basis, whether objectively or subjectively, than Najee Harris. But they probably know that, well, if you give him 20 touches, that might go right out the window. So I'm with him on Kaleb Johnson. I actually have Kaleb Johnson in a nice little tier with like Hampton and Swift and Harvey and Pacheco. He's inside the top 25 for me. I think that Kaleb Johnson is going to step into the Najee Harris role completely. So I agree with him.
All right, Jake, let's go to your last player kind of in this round 4 to 8 range.
So I know this one everybody's going to come for me on. I am definitely higher on Chris Olave than pretty much I see anybody else. And my argument for Chris Olave is not that I think Shuck is going to be an amazing quarterback, who I still think he's mispronouncing his last name, by the way. It is not. You can't. That's Shuh. Your last name is Shuh, like Doe maybe, or Show. It's not Shook. Stop. Anyway.
How do you pronounce Favre? Is it Favre?
Favre? Well, how about Chris Zuzewski? Where's the chef in there? Mike,
I don't disagree with you. Like, when I heard people saying Tyler Shuck, I was like, Where's the C and the K? Where's this coming from? What kind of linguistic backflips are we committing here?
That's as the English language, man. Well, actually, that's not English. But anyway, sidebar. Like, I look at Chris Olave, and this is what I say. Like, I just need him to be what Chris Olave has been, and that's top 25, back end top 25 wide receiver. But Shook is good enough to get him there. But the reason I like him is because you can basically draft him at what is essentially, I think, his floor. You can draft him as wide receiver 28, still get him before most people. I have him wide receiver 25 or 26, depending on the format. But the volume is going to be his. He can still play downfield. And I know this Shaheed breakout was exciting for a lot of people, especially for the Scott Fish Bowl, just because of the format. And he was going number one in some of those drafts. But let's not cloud what Chris Olave is and what Chris Olave has done when healthy, with or without Derek Carr at times. Like, Derek Carr hasn't been perfectly healthy while he's been there, and he still puts up numbers. But all I say is, like, I don't think Chris Olave is a wide receiver one. I didn't think that he was when he came out of the draft for fantasy purposes. I always thought he was a really nice wide receiver too, but I think that's why his price has fallen, is that it's not just the injuries, it's that people kind of got this mindset after his rookie season that, oh my God, Chris Olave is on the path to being a wide receiver one. And I don't know that the touchdown equity was ever going to be super high with him. Kind of what we've seen so far with Garrett Wilson, which again, I say is okay. Like, what's the big difference between Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson? There's not much, yet everybody wants to say Garrett Wilson top 12, Justin Fields will be fine for him. And nobody wants to say still draft Chris Olave at a supreme discount with a, crappy quarterback situation. But that's why you're buying him at his basement floor price.
Debro, you're admittedly no longer a Saints fan, but how do you feel about Chris Olave here?
I agree with everything Ciely's talking about here. I mean, and yeah, I mean, draw the parallels, man. Like, what's the difference between a lot of these wide receivers that are the clear number ones? And I think so much of the Shaheed stuff last year too was Derek Carr was basically a two-dimensional quarterback in the sense that he was either one of two things. He was either I'm throwing it. I've rarely seen in the time I've been doing fantasy stuff where a quarterback has both been top 5 to 10 in check down rate and top 5 to 10 in deep ball rate. So it's like either Alvin Kamara or we're chucking it, baby. And so like with that, Shaheed was stretching the field. So that's why you're seeing this close competition, or at least like they're what and what for targets. I think you're going to see Olave step forward way ahead of Shaheed. And this isn't even just coming off the injury, but the archetype of wide receiver. He was top 24 in separation and route win rate. The volume itself, I mean, I've got him at wide receiver 27 right now. So I want to get exposure to Chris Olave because you're looking at all these other guys. There's no difference between him and a lot of other guys like the Garrett Wilsons of the world, or even if you want to go Calvin Ridley, like where they are the number one in their offense, they're volume based. And but I'm not saying Olave is going to magically like become like a high touchdown guy, just the archetype of wide receiver. He's probably going to live in that, like, assuming he stays healthy, like, you're probably not going to see any outlier spots in his career where he goes for like 10 to 12 touchdowns. He's probably going to live in that 5 to maybe 7 or 8 mark, which is perfectly fine, but it caps his ceiling in fantasy, but the volume is going to carry him for days.
All right, let's go to kind of the guys that are going round 9 or beyond, probably in your flex spot early on, but could turn into a league winner type of player. We'll go a little quicker here because obviously there's less downside the later you're drafting.
You still don't want to pause and let everybody guess what the next one is for Derek? Like everybody, like you should open. All right, everybody in the chat, put in who Derek Brown's about to say. Okay, you got it right. There you go.
All right, Debro, kick us off here.
Oh, I'm going to do my best Scott Bogman impression right now, and I think Cam Skattebo is going to be a league winner. Looking at where he's going in drafts, and I think this backfield, what has been lost in the conversation is people are like, oh, it's thunder and lightning. Oh, this could be a split backfield. Based off of what? What is Brian Daboll showing you in his career that he's going to roll out 2 running backs in a committee approach? Last year with the Giants, 7 games, a running back had at least a 70% snap share. 12 games, a running back had at least a 65% snap share. Devin Singletary and Tyrone Tracy are both in that sample. You look at previous seasons, Devin Singletary was the guy. And the other thing is about the infatuation with Daboll over multiple stops for this archetype of volume gobbling running back. Like, pop quiz, guys. Do you want to know who the OC was when Peyton Hillis had his monster season? Give you a hint. It's Brian Daboll. So looking at this archetype of running back, I think Cam Skattebo is going to take over this backfield. I think you don't put more equity behind this running back that you drafted this year than you did with Tyrone Tracy when you already had Devin Singletary in that room and a deep running back class. And you could have gone out and got a Devin Neal or somebody else later in the draft, but they didn't. I think this was an indictment on Tracy, him fumbling away the job, and also the shortcomings of his game. Like, he's explosive, but he's still raw as a running back in certain areas. Cam Skattebo, you know what you're getting. You're getting a guy that can handle volume. He's really good, if not underrated, on the passing downs. And he can be the engine of this offense, because we don't think that we're going to see a Russell Wilson-led offense for the Giants that's coming out and throwing 40 times a game, especially looking at their schedule. They're going to run the ball. So I think that when you look at the Giants' backfield, you need to make a choice. You either are believing that Tyrone Tracy is going to be, one of these guys is going to be the workhorse. Who are you going with, Skattebo or Tracy? For me, clearly Skattebo.
Jake, what do you think about this backfield?
At some point, maybe we'll disagree. Actually, we kind of did a little bit earlier on. I know because you're asking a question. We've talked about it. I am Team Skattebo. A lot of it comes down to what Derek said, and you look at last year, is that so annoyed with the fumbles that he went back to Devin Singletary. He used Gray. He used these admittedly kind of bum running backs just to get Tracy back off the field and get into his head. You got to stop fumbling. And what I said to you, if nobody caught when we talked about it, why I also agree is because I think part of it is fantasy people and even draft or what are fans of the team, whatever. Like, we find these players that a lot of people didn't expect. And I say that to say, like, I'm not victory lapping by this, but this is coming from somebody who was higher on Tracy than most last year, but even so, still believing in Skattebo, is that Tracy surprised people and are like, oh my gosh, look at what he can do. He's better than we thought he could be immediately. As Debro said, he's still transitioning to running back, but he had a really nice season. He's explosive, blah, blah, blah. And look at what he did for me in fantasy. And then people don't want to let go and not see what's in front of them. The other part of it, and I know this is going to piss off a lot of people, but I got it from True Media a few weeks ago, the elusive rating that everybody always wants to talk about. And I'm not coming for Debro over this. I know he's not saying that, but everybody's like, oh, he's so elusive. He's so elusive. He's so elusive. Do you want to know what the correlation between elusive and fantasy production is? 0.003, as in nada. Yes, it can be the difference maker to get you on the field. It can be the difference maker in getting you better, bigger plays and doing more once your volume is into the 15, 20 touch range. Absolutely. I'm just saying that has a non-factor when it comes to, are you the better fantasy player? So I present that to say, yes, I believe in Skattebo. I also believe Skattebo is underrated as a passer because everybody's like, oh my God, he ran a 4.7. That's not what Skattebo was. How many times have we seen somebody test poorly just because of other factors going on, and he's still a really good receiver, if not just as good as Tracy?
Jake, let's keep the rookies coming with your next pick here.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Matthew Golden, and it's not somebody that I was actually super high on in the draft. I actually brought up a couple times saying there's a conversation to say who the better wide receiver for that team was. Well, one of those wide receivers doesn't matter anymore. But that being with Golden is he's stepping into a role, and that's what I like. I don't think the Packers have a clear number one wide receiver, including Golden. I think they have a bunch of twos, a really nice bunch of twos. But the role he's stepping into is, good God, can we get a healthy Christian Watson? Well, we have a healthy Matthew Golden stepping into this role, and whether, and this is why I say this, is whether it's Reed or Dobbs or we had Wicks at times or whatever, those are the answers to be the team's number two. The team number one should be Golden from day one. And if he can even step in there, I'm not saying Golden's going to put up top 20 wide receiver numbers, but he's going to be playing that Christian Watson role, which has the touchdown equity, which has the big play equity, which means I don't need Golden to get 90 receptions as a rookie to be a top 25 wide receiver. If Jordan Love and this team gets back to passing a little bit more like they like to, they don't like to be as run heavy as they were last year. And this is somebody who also still likes Josh Jacobs. You're going to see a better season from Jordan Love, who's a very popular bounce back candidate. And I believe he's a good value at where he's going for that. But you're going to see Golden be able to put up possibly 1,000 yards and 5, 6, 7 touchdowns, but do it on 60, 65 receptions. He doesn't need the 90 to do it. And that's why he's appealing, because he is the perfect right now. I would even take him as my third wide receiver, because once I get to my team's wide receiver 3, I'm okay with those Devontae Smiths of the world and the up and downs, because my first 2 are carrying my team. I want that potential upside to get a 20-point game any single week and be like, man, he helped me take everything home this week. And if he's your 4, I will check that box every day of the week.
Debra, where are you at on Golden? I actually forget where you had him in your pre-draft process.
I was lower on him than a lot of people, kind of like Jake was talking about. Just a lot of the numbers. I think
we were both like the lowest on him.
Yeah, we were close. I remember us talking pre-draft about him, and it's not so much like the talent and things like with Golden. I do agree. Like, I think people need to be taking shots in this passing attack. One, they're going to pass more. This is a similar case as like the Eagles and stuff. It's like they're going to pass more, and Jordan Love was injuries crippled him in his effectiveness last year. So if we get a healthy version of Jordan Love, I mean, you can look at tons of metrics for the Packers. The passing rate's probably going to come back. The question is how much. But even if they're league average, you're going to get more volume in this passing attack. So Golden, well, I'm like taking my shots on this passing attack, I'm more with Romeo Doubs, just some of the deeper like separation metrics and things like that. But I agree with Jake adamantly here that people need to be taking shots on this passing attack, because I was pulling up ECR here on my other screen. I mean, Matthew Golden's 127 wide receiver 50. If I'm reading this wrong and it's not Dubs and it's Golden, like Jake is absolutely right here. And the point that he brings up too, as a player, you're going to draft any one of these wide receivers from the Packers. You're drafting him as your wide receiver 4 in most different options. So if he does carry that spike week potential, we always talk about winning from your flex. Yeah, winning from your wide receiver 3 spot is also a difference maker too. So getting a lot of these different guys where you're taking shots on the rookies and upside at your wide receiver 3, 4, 5 spots. That's how, when we all flip over the cards and we're at week 14 or 15 and we're all about to walk into the fantasy playoffs and we're saying, dude, I'm so glad I stacked all these guys because they're crushing down the back half of the season. That's one of the bets you're making when you draft Golden and all these other rookies.
All right, D-Bro, give us your thoughts on JJ McCarthy. We've been waiting all episode.
You buried the lead, dude. You buried the lead. JJ McCarthy is going to be a QB1 this year. I'm here to tell people, and he's got upside for even more. Freaking Sam Darnold was the QB9 in fantasy points per game. How many different iterations, how many different years of the KOC offense do we have to see? The quarterback in this offense is going to throw for 4,000 plus passing yards. Sam Darnold had over 4,300 last year. You look at the year before that with Kirk Cousins, Josh Dobbs, Nick Mullins, and freaking Jaron Hall. They combined for over 4,300 passing yards. And for everybody, it's like, oh, well, I think Minnesota's going to go more run heavy. You think Minnesota is going to go more run heavy with their first round drafted quarterback that is a better player than Sam Darnold? And last year with Sam Darnold, the Minnesota Vikings were 8th in neutral passing rate and 3rd in pass rate over expectation. You think that? Okay, have fun with that thought. I don't believe that at all. The Vikings have told us who they want to be. KOC has told us how he wants to run his offense. And now he's got arguably the best quarterback out of all of this bunch, including Kirk Cousins, including Sam Darnold, under center this season with this cast of characters. JJ McCarthy is going to be a top 10 quarterback. Like, I have him as a top 10 quarterback in my ranks right now. This is not hyperbole. This is how I'm projecting him in this offense. And just to rewind and be kind to everybody, the type of prospect that JJ was in his final season in college, he was top 12 amongst all FBS quarterbacks in passing grade, adjusted completion rate, yards per attempt. I'm not done yet. Adjusted completion rate on downfield throws and adjusted completion rate versus pressure. And he has rushing upside to run for 300 to 400 yards this year. JJ can crush this season of fantasy.
Jake,
when
you raised your eyebrows at that, were you kind of reacting to just the general aggressiveness on McCarthy, or specifically Debra saying he has him as a top 10 quarterback?
The top 10. It really, like, this is one that I don't think you're going to find a lot of middle ground this year. And mostly because it doesn't seem like anybody's like, oh, cool, I could see JJ McCarthy as quarterback 17. It's either your team Debro or your team me. And it's not me as in I hate JJ McCarthy. I don't hate him. My concern is that the passing game from him, and this is what I said about him coming out of college. Like, I know a lot of people, like, my negative worst case scenario, and I don't believe this is going to happen. I was just like, worst case scenario, he's out of the league and he's Jake Locker. I say that to say, like, some people were also saying similar. I don't think he's that bad. I actually think as a passer, I said he was the NFL version of Trevor Lawrence. Now, that's not necessarily a positive, and that's why I say that. Like, Trevor Lawrence doesn't look comfortable yet. We've been talking about Trevor Lawrence so far to this point of his career is a bust. For what he was supposed to be, he is a bust. If his career ended today, he'd be one of the biggest busts in draft history. But that's also somebody who's shown inconsistencies from the comfortable level of leading his passers. And that's the one area I question this game where I don't disagree that Kevin O'Connell can get the best out of him. Kevin O'Connell gets the best out of a lot of people. I sat here on these shows and talked about Jordan Mason as a nice sleeper because he can get the best out of this offense. But when I say Lawrence, 4,100 yards and 24 touchdowns, it's a nice season, but you're going to need rushing. And I don't know how much he's going to run in this offense. Some questions that I think it's going to take a little bit more for him to get the top 10. If you told me 16, 15, which I think is kind of the middle ground, I'd be more in. I have him more down about 20 because I think there's like a lot of risk here, but I'm ready to be wrong on this one. I think you're just going to have to either be 100% in or you're going to be 100% out because I don't think you're really going to get him as like a decent value. You're either going to have to be with Debro or with me, and that means you're getting him or you're not.
And that could simply come down to just passing touchdown rate, like Jake's talking about, like the margin for, and just again, transparency on my ranks.
Can you wait 2 minutes?
Quarterback, just in general, and I know Jake, you've talked about this, like all the pocket passer guys you see in like at the same, like QB 9 through 18, I have in one long tier. Yeah. So like you can dice those guys up, and to me, you pick your favorite flavors in that tier. Like my favorites are JJ McCarthy, Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, like those types of guys where it's either regression, offensive environment, scoring, all that kind of stuff. But like if anybody were to tell me they wanted to make the same kind of case for Justin Herbert or Drake May, I understand it. I'm team JJ.
I'll give you one on that one. I think the ceiling's higher for McCarthy than Herbert. I don't know like what the deal with Herbert is. Like people are just putting him in the Hall of Fame.
And I mean, to the point you just made about that tier, Debro, like I will not be drafting the 7th quarterback off the board, whoever it is. It just will not happen. I will want to be taking the 10th or 11th or 12th.
And McCarthy, you will never have to do that.
Exactly.
Even in bullish rooms, he goes somewhere in that mid QB2 range. Maybe not QB 20, but like QB 14 or 15. Do
you think he'll run a decent amount, Debro? Because I have, like, just to give you an idea why I brought that up, is like I have for 250 and 4 on the ground. Like, I actually think that's, do you think you could do more than that? Because again, I think he's going to get top 10, I think he would have to either throw for like 30 touchdowns, which again, that's my concern is that he's Trevor Lawrence as a passer right now.
Yeah.
Or run for more like 406 or something like that.
I think he's probably going to be in the high 3s for rushing. I could see like 4 to 5 rushing scores, but I think where the big divide for us is probably just the passing touchdowns. And that's where I'm at. Like I think a healthy TJ Hawkinson, even if Addison misses time, I think you're going to see a lot of schemed ups. Like then Hawk is going to eat while Addison misses any time, and it's going to be more of a condensed offense. But I honestly think we could see one of the best seasons, if not the best, out of Justin Jefferson this year because he's one of those guys that's danced around like fantastic. Like on Jefferson's resume, he's never had more than 10 receiving touchdowns. He's due. And he's had 1,800 yards in one season, but he's never come back to that. So like, what if all of the stars align for that with JJ McCarthy as well? And
one more thing. That's why I'm dodging my camera right now to kind of see. I just adjusted my projections, gave him 6 more touchdowns. He goes from QB 20 to QB 14. So yeah, there you go.
So, and then he's right, like in that same kind of range for QB1.
Yeah.
So, yep.
All right. We went long on McCarthy, which I think was good.
Okay.
But Jake, give us quickly your last league winner here going late.
Well, and that's why it works is because I think a quick version of this, it doesn't need a lot of explanation, but Trey Benson, who I think has some similarities to Nick Chubb, and unfortunately that continues to be some injuries that we've seen for him at this point. Trey Benson was drafted for a reason last year. We were all excited as one of the premier, you saw any site last year, top 5 handcuff option last year. James Conner always gets hurt. And then not only does James Conner almost finally play a full season, which by the way, still hasn't happened for his entire career. But the second part about being is that Trey Benson gets hurt. And then we just kind of lost his season. And now it's like, nobody wants Trey Benson. And like, why? Like Trey Benson should be in the conversation with all these other backup options. Like everybody wants to draft Ray Davis in case James Cook was a one thing, but why is not, they're very good grammar there. Why are we not talking about Trey Benson with Mason and Algier and all these other options where if one thing were to happen to James Conner, and I'm more betting on the fact that the injury season happens, not the almost fully healthy season at this point of his career, Trey Benson should immediately step in and be top 20, if not better.
Debro, you were very high on Benson a year ago. How do you feel now?
I'm still fine with him. I agree with Jake. He should be going in that handcuff tier. Like, I've got him right behind a bunch of other handcuffs. Like, I think the conversation for Trey Benson, I mean, just started wherever you start in the handcuff tier. Like, I think that's probably somewhere around like RB 37, RB 38. And you want to put him at the top of that tier? Have at it. Totally with it. I mean, because I don't think you're going to see if anything happens to Connor, if Benson can be the guy we saw in flashes last year, given that role and stuff like that, I don't think you're going to see the team like lean back on Amari DiMercato or Michael Carter or anybody like that. They're going to give the run to Trey Benson and be like, look, man, like we gave Connor the extension, but can you be?
I'm not going to lie.
What's up?
I said, I forgot they were still hanging on to Michael Carter. I'm not going to lie. And I have a Michael Carter signed mini helmet down there hidden away somewhere because I was hoping he could be more than he was.
Michael Carter, again, earlier in the show, a great shout out for what we were talking about with guys from yesteryear that people don't want to let go of.
Yeah. This month, if you want a chance to win a signed James Cook Bills jersey for free, courtesy of our friends at pristineauction.com, all you have to do is subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel right now. Drop a comment below on any video, and that is it. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can know when new videos are up and to claim your prize. Guys, we'll wrap up with just an opportunity to throw out a couple other names that you guys are targeting. Could be early, late in drafts, just other names that we didn't mention today that you guys are generally targeting, whether as a league winner or not. Debra, who stands out to you?
I'm going after undervalued guys. I mean, like, I feel like two of the biggest offenses that are undervalued, and they're probably both going to be top 5, top 3 in scoring, are the Eagles and the 49ers. So take your shots on them. Like we talked about Kittle, but dude, draft a ton of Juwan Jennings. If he is that guy, if Pearsall cannot stay healthy, there's still a path for him. There's still a path for Ricky Pearsall. Devonta Smith, people are letting him fall into wide receiver 3 territory, although he's been a top 24 wide receiver in fantasy points per game in each of the last 3 seasons. Dallas Goedert, who has never finished on a per game basis outside the top 12 over the last, I think it's like 5 or 6 seasons, even last year included, is a tight end 2 in drafts right now. So both those offenses I want to shout out, but also like all the rookie guys. Trey Harris, who's now is in camp. People are like, oh, I don't know if he shows up, and I don't know if he beats out Mike Williams. Well, Mike Williams is off to the retirement home, and Trey Harris is in camp. Jaden Higgins. So, like, you need to be taking shots on underrated offenses and really talented rookies, because in so many different seasons, how many different times do we have to see this? The rookies are the ones carrying you to championships in weeks 13 through 17, usually.
Jake, anybody stand out to you to wrap things up?
I mean, I was going to save those 2 wide receivers for after I brought up some running backs. I was bringing up Trey Harris, and I've been, lording the Jaden Higgins upside over these shows. So I'll go back to running back, and similar to that handcuff situation, I am befuddled by the fact that Tyler Algier is falling nearly out of the top 50 running backs. Everybody's like, oh, Bijan Robinson could be the RB1. And like, okay. And if he got hurt, we've already seen Tyler Algier put up RB1 numbers before Bijan was even there. Not that I'm enamored with Algier, but I just do not get why nobody wants to draft him just on the risk of something happens there. And then I brought up Ray Davis. I'd say that you put Jaden Blue. I still think people like, I'm taking shots at Javonte Williams, but if it's not Javonte Williams, I don't think Jaden Blue is going to be. I think he's very much like Jaylen Warren. He's not going to be 20 touches per game, but he could be the most valuable piece there. And then my super, super, super deep one, I'll bring up again. I know the situation in this team, and there should be a hell of a lot of targets for DK Metcalf, but I have not given up on Roman Wilson yet, mostly because Mike Tomlin was a fan of his enough and put him against Quinion Mitchell in the Senior Bowl and then still drafted him in the 3rd round. I don't think his career is done after one busted rookie season where he got to play 5 plays and got hurt.
Jake, I love that call out of Roman Wilson because when you hear the conversation of like any of the wide receivers for the Steelers, Calvin Austin always gets brought up. And I'm like, you do realize like Arthur Smith is in love with 12 and 13 personnel. That does mean that if anybody's coming off the field, it's not going to be Roman Wilson. It's going to be Calvin Austin. So just that in itself is, I want the guy that's going to be starting probably in 2 wide receiver sets. I don't see that being Calvin Austin. I don't.
I'm with you.
It's going to be Roman Wilson.
All right, we'll go ahead and wrap things up there. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to our league winners to target in 2025 drafts. For Jake and Debra, I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.